Scroll down. All right. All right. So let's get started. Thanks everyone for your patience. Here, I just want to get the view set up correctly. All right, well, you can all see me. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dwayne Harris. I'm the executive director here of the Little Theatre of Manchester at Cheney Hall. As I think you all saw, given our difficulties in the beginning of this, we're all sort of in uncharted territory here, given the events of the world. And thanks for your patience as we try to figure this all out. So we, as you should all know by now, we did end up canceling the balance of our 2020 season, so everything through November. And that was done mainly to, we just couldn't see a path forward that absolutely guaranteed that we could protect our artists, our volunteers, and our patrons. And so that was it was a difficult decision. I think we all agree that it was the best decision in the interest of all of us. If there's any silver lining in this, it's sort of that it's forced us to rethink about a lot of ways that we do business and deliver our product, or the things that we create, deliver that product to you. And so we find ourselves here today doing this virtual, our first ever fully virtual lunchtime lecture. Unless you are in a room with somebody in your family or your friends, we are all sort of alone doing this. And so that's sort of led us. This is a piece of our new initiative called LTM at Home, in which we'll be presenting things like this today, this lecture. We're going to do some other discussions about LTM, our history, our past productions, our future productions. We'll be doing readings of plays, Broadway plays, new works by some artists here in Connecticut, and also sharing some music from our volunteers and artists. To take part in any of that, if you're not already, be sure to sign up for our email newsletter. If you go to our website at the bottom, you can say join email list, and that's how we're going to communicate all of the upcoming activities. Some of it we're not publicizing on Facebook or anywhere else, so really the only way you're going to get access to it is by signing up for that email newsletter. So make sure to do that if you haven't already, and you'll get the information there. So I think, given that we are a few minutes late, 7 minutes late, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let David Garnes take over, talking about what was to be our second production of the season, Other Desert Cities, which we originally postponed and then ultimately fully canceled. I know some of you have seen a reading of it. We did a Evenings at 7 reading of it last year. We've done some of these virtual readings of it as well. So I will just say to those of you that have seen it already, if we get to a point where we can ask questions, and I gave you a couple of different ways to ask questions. There's a Q&A box down there. You can type something in the comments, or you can just raise your hand and we'll unmute you so you can ask your question. But if you get to a point that you want to talk about the ending of the show, we are going to wait until we can give some sort of spoiler warning, so that those that have not seen the end of the show can go away, so that we don't in any way ruin anything for them. I think you'll agree that that's a fair thing to do to them. It takes away from the magic of the show if it's spoiled for them. So I've said enough. Let me introduce our usual lunchtime lecture moderator, who thankfully made it here today, David Garnes.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, good. Well, I'm so glad we're able to be here today for our lunchtime lecture. You know, we were literally ready to go with a week before the pandemic hit, and the play was due to open the week after that. So it's been touch and go since then. And it's really a joy for me to be able to have our gathering virtually and to see the play virtually as well. It would have been a shame, believe me, for you all not to have had the chance to experience what I think is a memorable reading of a truly outstanding work. So our plan for today will follow our usual lunchtime lecture format. I'll begin with a few remarks about other desert cities, and then we'll be joined by several members of the production for their comments and participation. I hope we'll also be able to have some comments and questions from our audience out there as well. Caution remarks. What distinguishes other desert cities is not that it is about family relationships. It is, but I think that's not what makes it the play that it is. That dynamic, family relationships, has been the subject of countless theatrical ventures. To use two extreme examples, all the way from the Batty family of George S. Kaufman's farcical You Can't Take It With You, which we did a few years ago, to the tragic Tyrone clan of Eugene O'Neill's biographical A Long Day's Journey into Night. Now, those are clearly about families. Other desert cities, however, is situated, what I would say, precariously on the long arc between comedy and drama. And it manages to encapsulate both superbly. Perhaps the play is best described by the postmodern term dramedy, with a bit more emphasis, I would say, on the first syllable. Dramedy is a tricky genre to pull off, and this play more than succeeds. Set in the Coachella Valley, east of Los Angeles, in the residence of an affluent, traditionally Republican family, Other Desert Cities explores relationships between and among the play's 5 characters: mother, father, daughter, son, and an aunt. The title of the play refers to a highway sign in the California desert with directions to exit for Palm Springs or continue on to other desert cities. In an interview, playwright John Robin Bates said, "Well, one of the reasons it's called Other Desert Cities is because I am thinking about, as someone says in the play, a war," and that would have been the Iraq War, "going on thousands of miles away in another desert." End of quote. The year is 2004. I should also mention that you'll recognize several names of real people that are dropped throughout the play. So pay attention to that because it helps give you a sense of the position that this family is in and the connections they have. The wars going on in the Wyeth family, both political and generational, escalate as witty repartee turns increasingly acerbic and hostile during a holiday reunion. Revelations to us and to the characters occur that heighten the tension of the family dynamics. As New York drama critic Ben Bratley notes, these interactions are, quote, always balanced on a razor's edge of affection and aggression. This play snaps, crackles, and pops. It moves quickly and its tone changes dramatically as the play progresses. Let me end my comments by saying a few words about the playwright. John Robin Bates has had a varied career as playwright, screenwriter, television producer, and as an actor. Twice a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize, he has been nominated for several Tony and Off-Broadway awards. In addition to his plays, you may be familiar with some things he's written for television, such as West Wing, Alias, and Brothers and Sisters. He also wrote the screenplay for the award-winning film Stonewall. Other desert cities had sold-out runs at Lincoln Center and on Broadway. In a 2013 interview, Bates said, "In other desert cities, I focus on an American family. I had created a TV show, Brothers and Sisters, and I had tried to make that a show about a divided family politically and their ongoing argument about what America meant and means. But I didn't get to do that really on the TV show," Bates says. "I had all these notions about politics and children who have very divergent politics from their parents, but I had to wait for it to come together. And thus we have Other Desert Cities." So let's turn now to the play itself. We have several folks from our production with us today. And I'm just going to mention them, and I hope they're all here. I'll just say them by first name. We have Hunter, Billy, Mark, Angela, Marissa, Stephen, and I think Ron may be here too, who did the lighting for the show. I think we'll begin. I'd like to begin with our director, Hunter Parker. So Hunter, if you're ready, tell us a bit about yourself and whatever you'd like to say about the play, and whatever you think is relevant in this setting.
Hi guys, thank you so much, David. That was a lovely introduction. I had a lot of the same notes kind of scribbled down. I guess just to tell you a little bit about myself, this was my LTM directorial debut. So thank you so much, LTM, for trusting me with this beautiful play. And while I'm sorry it wasn't able to be fully realized in my vision on the stage, we were so close. I knew that the actors would be able to really get across some of the dramedy, as you've described so elegantly, the affections, the aggression in a reading, which I think they did. So, I read a lot of plays. I'm drawn I love plays from classics to contemporary. And I think that I was thinking, well, what is it, like you said, that makes this play so special? And it's not, another family drama, right? And I was laughing because my mother, who lives in another state, was tuning in yesterday, and she's texting me throughout. And first she's like, "It's funny. Is it supposed to be funny? Do I have a sixth sense of humor?" and I think that's exactly right. I think you go into it thinking, wait, is this supposed to be funny or not? And that's something that with a play like this, doesn't always come across in the page. So kudos to the actors, because being able to interpret the words and have them come to life like this is really incredible. And I want to give props to John Robin Bates, who is a really phenomenal writer. So anyone this is a play that you can read and tell, it's a really well-crafted play. There's so much thought and intelligence that's gone into it. And it kind of makes our job, my job as a director and as actors, easy because it's so well written. So I can't, there's a reason it was nominated for the Pulitzer, right? So I think that's the thing about families, right? Sometimes our family experiences are funny and light, and other times they aren't. And the other thing I like about this play is wherever you're at, whether you're a parent or a child, I myself, you're going to identify with one of the characters. Something about one of the characters in the play really speaks to you. So, for example, I really liked, for me and my own mother, and thinking about our relationship, and me and my own father, I was really struck by a lot of those moments that the actors were able to come across, and so they're complicated. That's what he captures in his writing. It's not, we're always loving and we always respect each other, but no, we're different. And so this idea of parents can have these values and beliefs and raise their children who grow up to have their own values and beliefs and opinions is where this conflict comes in. And I think that's a really interesting thing to think about. Those of you that are parents, maybe you can identify with that. Maybe your children have different political views or different religious views or other things. And is that okay? And how do you wrestle with that? The other thing is this idea of family secrets and what do you keep from your children or what do you keep from each other? And why do you choose to do that? And, you know, without giving away the secret in the play, I was thinking about that too. And my mother was texting me last night, well, you know, all of our family secrets. I'm like, well, do I, you know? So I think we might not have a secret quite like this in our family, but there are so many different nuances and levels of what you choose to share, again, with your children or with your siblings. And I think all of that combined really just makes it so interesting. Like you said, it's really a captivating play from start to finish. It's not, I like what you said, David, it's not so plot driven, right? Like there's, at first, when we first read it, I remember thinking, okay, how is this play going to move and not feel stagnant, right? A play that takes place essentially all in one room. And it just does because of those rich family relationships and because of the back and forth. And the last thing I want to say is, as you know, Brooke's book is titled Love and Mercy. And I put this in my director's notes that I speak before the play. And I think that's really interesting. He had originally titled this play Love and Mercy and changed it to Other Desert Cities. And thinking about this idea of love and mercy in your own relationships with your own family, and also as you watch it unfold, it's just really striking and so those are kind of my kickoff thoughts. And I do want to say thanks again to LTM for the opportunity. And I'd like to say thank you, of course, to my assistant director, Billy, and to my stage manager, Karen Sheridan, and to the actors who really are phenomenal. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Hunter. Actually, what you've said, I think, is a really good encapsulation of what I was trying to say, you know, just by way of description, but you've actually lived it as director. So
Right.
I'm glad that, you know, what I said sort of
Absolutely.
resonates with you as well. Now we have other people from the cast. Would someone just like to jump in? I know that Angela's here. And then Angela's waving. Would you like to say a few words, Angela, about the character you play, and anything else you might want to add?
Sure. First of all, thank you, everyone. It's so good to see my cast members again live, and director and assistant director and Dwayne and Dave. It's so great to see you. As far as the play, you know, you guys have both said a lot that is so true about it. It is, it's a complicated family, but all families are complicated. That's one of the, you know, that's one of the truisms of this play. And in her director's notes, Hunter said something about very often in families, you have to choose between what is the truth and what is your loyalty to the family. And Polly, I play Polly Wyatt, the mother of this clan, and she's very big on loyalty, and loyalty is paramount. So she has created this family unit, and it really is Polly who is driving this family's existence. And her husband Lyman says something like that in the play. So Polly it drives this family and has imprinted on them that loyalty is paramount, and you take care of each other. And when one of the children strays from that, albeit unwittingly, but I won't give away too much. She comes down hard. And so it was a bit of a challenge because Polly does come off really as unlikable at times, but she's also very funny. She has a lot of the comedic lines in this show. So that sort of lightens her character a bit. But deep down, she is a bedrock of strength and demanding of loyalty. And while very often that comes off as tough love, and there she is, Marissa.
Well, there's
Marissa plays my daughter, Brooke, and Marissa is really the catalyst for all of the action. So Polly and Polly and Brooke are always at loggerheads. Angela and Marissa are not, just to be clear. But Polly and Brooke are always at loggerheads. And I think the battles that you see them have on stage are battles that are reflected in a lot of families, regardless of what the particular controversy is at the moment. Again, as Hunter said, it really makes you think about what is important in a family. And there are times when you'll be called to speak truth to power. And there will be times when you will have to shut up. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's obviously it's different for every family. It's different for every situation. So it's a great play. And if you haven't seen it, I hope you will see it tomorrow at 2 p.m.
What strikes me, what you said, Angela, about the conflict between the mother and daughter, it's mentioned a few times in the play that you're alike. And I think that rings true where a child and a parent who are alike tend to butt heads more vociferously than the other way around. And that's that. And there's also the dynamic between the different children and the different parents. Your relationship with your son is different than with your daughter, and likewise. I really don't even, my character doesn't deal with the son, but there's definitely the father and the daddy's little girl that still sort of pervades, and those are those family dynamics that ring so true in this play.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing to me how, as part of the audience, my feelings toward these characters change a lot as the play progresses. Now, some of that is because of what we start to learn about what has happened in the past that is important eventually for us to know. But I think it's a real feat that this play is able to have you change your mind in a way, or certainly get to know the characters more than you ever expected that you would, and in a very explosive and yet skillfully constructed way. Mm-hmm. It's really a remarkable play in that regard. So we've heard from Mr. and Mrs. Wyeth. Let's how about let's see, who do we have? Someone else from the cast. How about one of their children?
Sure. Go for it, Steve.
Yeah, they're okay.
Hi. Is this working?
Yep.
Yeah, it's working.
Okay. Good. Sorry, it's my first Zoom meeting, so I'm
say
learning.
Who you are too, you know.
I play Tripp Wyeth in the show, the son of both Polly and Mark's character, who I am.
And tell us your name, your real name.
My name is Steven. This is my second feature production that I've been a part of as a main cast member at LTM. So I thoroughly enjoyed the experience, and I'm happy to come back for more. I'm sorry it wasn't in the way that we all intended, but I'm happy to see this go forward in some form or another. So I'm glad everyone gets to see it that way. As far as what everyone said about the show. I think, they've all hit the nail on the head. I mean, family is a very complicated construct, and each piece plays a very specific role in creating the entire dynamic of the scenario you see play out before you. I'm going to try and make sure I don't say anything that spoils, as they've mentioned, but my character, I felt, has been important in a way where the rest of the family has these pre-established relationships because they're all slightly older than Tripp, and they've gone through some serious changes throughout their years knowing each other, and his character, in one manner or another, is sheltered or avoided of these incidents. And so he comes across as an outsider to the events that take place mostly. But at the same time, he kind of is an interesting contradiction because he is the bridge, in my opinion, between each individual relationship. He is the only one who consistently is on speaking terms with both the sister and the mother and father after several years of separation. And he has a way of using his experience, or should I say lack of experience, dealing with these previous incidents to remind people that there is more than what is happening in the show, and they can, if they can see past that, then you can find the strength that family provides. Ultimately, the show takes a particular course where you kind of see the toll that not only those decisions make on the mother, father, and sister, but on the one person who hasn't really been exposed to it all. It's almost as if what they're going through becomes a side effect of what he is trying to just navigate. And in a way, he almost emulates the father as a peacekeeper, and not in the same manner. He doesn't have the same approach, but he doesn't want to see these people work against each other, because everyone has their own goals in mind throughout the show. Like, they have their own motivation and agenda, and he, I think, is the only one who doesn't have a specific motivation geared towards the same means to an end that they're trying to approach. And he breaks the mold in that way, which I always found very interesting. And I thank Parker Hunter, sorry, sometimes I use last names, for just giving me the opportunity to really look at this character and bring to life both aspects of being the person who's on the outside, who kind of retains that innocence and experience, but then also has that bond with the rest of the family that is kind of fractured for the other three members before they've even all entered the room together. You don't feel that tension initially, but it's lying under the surface waiting. And he's just trying to keep people from letting that tension spill over.
Yeah, I think Tripp is very important in the play for the reasons that you just said. We're with Tripp right from the beginning. I mean, in other words, I was always waiting to see what Tripp would have to say about this, but then of course he gets very much caught up then in the events as the play progresses. But he remains the bridge, I think. He does remain the person that perhaps has the most, I don't want to say distanced, but the most, the least emotionally in turmoil perspective. And I think you've expressed that really well.
Thank you.
Does anyone, shall we, I see Billy Winter here. And why don't we have, did you want to say anything more, Stephen, before I?
No, I mean, I'm curious to hear what everyone else has to say, because I had my experience and now I'm just ready to share that and see what everyone else is willing to share.
Yeah, well, thank you. You said it exactly how I was seeing Tripp as well.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
no, I think
I'm glad that's how it came across.
Yeah, no, you did. But how about if we leave the family for a minute and talk to Billy Winter, who is the associate director. Is it associate or assistant?
Assistant, yeah.
Assistant. So tell us, Billy, a little bit. Well, a couple of things, if you would.
Mhm.
What does the assistant director do, and what has been your experience with the play?
So for what an assistant director does, it can really vary depending on the production and the director. This is actually my second time assistant directing. I just did Murder on the Orient Express back in February. But in this show, I think in general, for me, when I'm assistant, I'm trying to keep an eye out for things that maybe the director's missed, or things like that. For other desert cities like Hunter, it's so much about the relationships between family members in that specific moment, and their family secret, and a lot of the conflict comes down to Hunter mentioned this in her director's note, who owns a family story, has the right to share that. And Angela's character, Polly, has a moment where she says, you have to be loyal to the family, and this you have to think about the consequences of you sharing this story. So a lot of the show is wrestling with Brooke, the main character, and her struggle between sharing this family secret and the catharsis that it can bring her in dealing with everything she's been going through. I don't want to give away too much, versus her loyalty to the family and trying to keep things cool with her relationships with her parents.
Yeah, Billy, one thing I was impressed with was how the direction seems very tight in this play. Were you and Hunter really trying to make sure that there were, I mean, you once you get caught up in this play, which is right from the very beginning, it never lets you go, and there's always something happening very quickly. Was that a conscious decision?
I'll certainly
on your part
for it if you want to give it to me, but I think a lot of it has to do with the writing. Like I said, John Robin Bates is a very talented writer, and he's put so much into this script. Almost every line has layers to it, and there's every single character is a complex character. There's a lot going on below the surface for every single one of these family members that you don't necessarily pick up on until the last 10 minutes of the show. But I think a lot, it's a testament to the writing, what you're seeing, how quick everything is, and what's bubbling beneath the surface.
If I may interject here about the writing.
Please do, Mark. Please.
Yeah,
do.
please, Mark.
I know that Angela and I had at least one conversation, if not more, at every rehearsal on our yearning to do justice to this script, and how specific and precise the writing is, and that we really, as I said, we just wanted to do it justice. And as Billy said, that the writing is so precise and so rich, in that there are so many nuances to explore. It's one of the finest pieces of literature I've acted in, I think. And that's what makes, obviously we're gushing about the writing, but from an actor's standpoint, we really did a lot. And Angela and I did, and Marissa, especially in our scenes, we talked so much about the writing and the words and the word choice. And there's a monologue where towards the end with my character, when he goes from the article a, and then or a, and then the, and then this, and that build of just that specific, it seems like this doesn't make much difference, but those were the types of exact explorations that we needed to do to get the script right. And boy, it was a pleasure to do that. Just a pleasure to explore those words.
Yeah. Well, it certainly pays off, or paid off, I should say. Although there's another opportunity to see this tomorrow, in that your characters, every single character is complex, but made increasingly clear to the audience. In some cases, and I think in most cases, because as you learn more, these people become, you can identify with them more. The more you hear about what is happening and what has happened, what has brought all this on, what has culminated in this not expected holiday time that they're spending together, it all works. And I think a lot of that is probably because of what you said, the work that was put into it, and when you were rehearsing your scenes, because there's a lot going on. It's kind of as I think I said before, it's kind of a juggling act in terms of the audience is entertained by a lot of the witticism, but then gradually you realize this family is in serious communication trouble here, or whatever. In other words, the discussions become increasingly serious. And Mark, who I think is trying to hold things together, but you evolve. That's the thing. And in the 2 hours plus of the play, each character evolves. I'd like to hear a little bit from Marissa, if she's there.
Wrong person.
Marissa and Dawn are both here now.
Yeah, Dawn is here too?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. So let's go. All right, let's go with Dawn first then. Dawn, you tell us a little bit about the character you play. You're part of the family, and just as involved, but not right in the immediate. Yeah, tell us about Silda.
Wow, there's a lot to tell. I don't know. Sometimes when I look at somebody like a character like that clearly has big problems, I think you start, for me, it starts making you realize that we're not all that different. Like her problems, she has her own like specific maybe problems. She had an addiction and stuff, but what led to it and the feelings and the things she experienced that lead to the way she is, I'm like, it isn't that different than what we all live every day to different extents. And I mean, just when I looked into that, I mean, we didn't get through, that into the rehearsal process. I guess it was about halfway. I don't know exactly how far, but I was looking forward to, digging a little more like deep into her. And because, for myself, they don't tell you a lot about her, just, the obvious problems that she's having. So you don't hear a lot more background, really, a little bit, but not much in the story. So for myself, I have to like have a backstory for myself. I have to think about what led to this. And, it might not be anything that's in the play, that tells about, but it has to be here for me to figure out how she got where she is. And I mean, that's what I love. That's what I love doing, is like just trying to bring that reality, out there.
Yeah, well, and also, yeah, you're right about Silda. We don't really know. She's there. She's the aunt
Mhm.
in this family. But toward the end, you do have, when certain things become known,
Mhm.
the expressions on your face, it's really good. Did someone just, that's not my phone, is it? I think I heard a phone a minute ago.
And David,
That was
I think the contrast between these sisters is really important, and it really heightens the interesting part,
Yeah.
like how different they are and why, and
Yeah, and also Silda is interesting. You hold your emotions in very much for most of the play, and you have a lot of one-liners and caustic comments and so forth. And then we start to see the more vulnerable side, I think, of Silda.
Sure.
What I like about this play is that every character is developed. Every character, you leave feeling quite differently about them than you did at the beginning of the play. And that's because we see how they are affected by what goes on during the course of the play. So that by the end, I think you're seeing these people in a quite different light. And that's a tribute to, I think, well, certainly to the writing, to the direction, and of course to the actors. I mean, it's really, really quite something to see. So I'd like to bring, let's have Marissa now. And thank you, Dawn.
You're welcome.
Unless you wanted to do, Dawn, do you want to say anything else?
No, I mean, that's basically what you said about how you see them in one light at the beginning. And again, I don't know, I'm into this thing, like just bringing everything. I just want everything to be real and believable. And I just always relate back to, it's when you meet people like, I'm learning this now, now at my age, that, I mean, you label, you see people and you're like, yeah, I got him down. And you don't even know. You don't even know.
No, you don't. And at the very end of this play, I was struck by, and I wanted to talk about this too, the extreme close-ups that we have of people because of the way we've presented this, virtually. The expressions on all your faces, they're so appropriate and they're so moving, and it makes me realize how skillfully everything was put together so that by the very end, there's such an impact, I think, in terms of we, the audience, digesting what we have just seen. Now, the person who, in a way, as I think maybe Mark mentioned this, is the catalyst. One of you said catalyst, and that was what had come to my mind also about Marissa's role. So Marissa, if you're there,
Yep.
I know you are, because we saw you pop it before a while ago. Tell us about, I think your character really is the catalyst. In a way, I mean, that you have the last lines in the play, so to speak, but I think there's a reason for that. Tell us about this character. This is a very complex character, very complex.
Yeah, she is very complex. She's very human. She's very real. She struggles with things that a lot of people can relate to. And I think the basis, sorry, there's a truck going past my window. I think the basis of who she is kind of thrown out the window during the course of the show. And I think that has a massive effect on how she views her world and her family and what she thinks she knows and what she learns. One of the things that I love about this show is the the ability to have character development so richly developed, and the relationship aspect of the show, the ensemble aspect of the show. My favorite types of plays are those that really kind of highlight character and highlight relationships. And I mean, you can't really get more in depth in those two areas than this show. Each character has a journey. I know it's like cliche to say, but they do, and they're subtle, and they are emotional, and they drive the action in the play, but they also drive the character and where they all internally go. Brooke was, I was living with her a lot during the process of rehearsals, and she is described as a dry woman, and I think that comes across a lot in some of her lines, especially in the first act. This type of sarcastic or witty, biting kind of relationship that she has with her mom. And Mark's character, Lyman, has a line that says, you know, that twinkle in your eye is always there. You always have something. You always got like a joke. You're always trying to make a joke, and you always got that little twinkle. But sometimes, even though you might really want it there, I'm paraphrasing horribly the line, it's not, and it's gone. And that twinkle is not there. And I think that is such a clear representation of how Brooke is. I think she puts this front up to the world, but inside she is struggling, and she's been struggling for a very long time.
Yeah.
And she's struggling with a reality that she has lived with for her entire, life, essentially, formative years. And when the foundation of who she is sort of shaken by revelations that come through during the course of the play, I think it's a huge challenge for the character to kind of work through what her new reality is. And I think it's also a huge challenge for the actor to not play the end. Because there is such a difference between what we start with and what we end up with, especially in this show. And it's a challenge to live in the moment throughout each second of the script, because that's really the only way to represent the characters, to do them justice that way. I feel like.
And there is I'm going to tread carefully here because I don't want to give anything away, but that the very last scene that you have, that's a very difficult scene, I would imagine, for you to play, because the audience is waiting to see how you're going to behave in that particular scene.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, very interesting what you do. I would guess that you spent some time discussing that, how that character should come across at the very, very end. And it works. It works. I'm not going to say anything except that it works.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
It was, that was one of the best parts of working on this show, was working with Hunter and Billy on that character stuff and really asking questions and digging deep. and allowing us to explore those, explore the different options and the different ways that the character could develop, and really having great conversations. And I know that had we gone further in the rehearsal process, it would have gotten deeper. And you know, it's it's a very
because we do get to see Brooke at the end in a way that we don't get to see the other characters. So I was this time I've seen the play before. I mean, I saw the Evenings at 7 presentation, and I had seen it earlier. But I was particularly struck by that this time, how I watched you very carefully in that last scene. And I think you caught a lot of the nuances that I was hoping would be there. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Do we have, is there anyone else from the production there today who hasn't? Ron, is there anything? Ron Shalleck, are you there?
No, he's not in as a panelist, but he did just type a comment.
Okay.
To say well done.
Oh, he did. Okay. I'm too busy concentrating on what I'm doing. I haven't been looking around the screen here.
And thank you to Ron for all the sound work he did behind the scenes. And we did have fun, and Billy helped as well, putting together a soundtrack that unfortunately everyone couldn't hear, but maybe we'll share the shout for fun.
I heard it. It came back at the end, too, didn't it?
Yeah, a couple of them. Yeah, so they didn't.
Yeah. Was there supposed to be more during?
No, just in between the scenes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. So I think I would like to see if we have we have about 10 minutes left. I'd like to, if we can manage this, I'd like to see if anyone who's tuned in has anything to add or any questions. Dwayne, are you able to do your magic there to see if?
Yeah, definitely. So there are a couple of ways that you can ask questions if you have any. If you want to, there's a little icon at the bottom of your screen that gives you the option to raise your hand. So if you raise your hand, I can unmute you and you can ask your question. You can also type it in the chat box, or there's a Q&A option at the bottom. So you can use any of those if you have any questions for the panelists.
And remember, if you've seen the play, mum's the word on certain things. You know what I mean. I don't know if someone's typing something.
Yeah, I was gonna say no question. Oh wait.
Jane has asked a question.
Yeah, you got it. Can you read it there?
Yeah, Angela, how is this? Jane is asking, Angela, how is this show a different journey for you versus August Osage County?
Good question. Yeah.
That's a great question. Thanks, Jane. In some ways, you might say that there's similarities in that both characters. I played Maddie Faye in August Osage County. There are similarities in that they both have comedic, a lot of the comedic lines in the show. They both have secrets that they want to protect. But Maddie Faye is a more minor character in August, and you don't really see the development of her as a character as much as you do in other desert cities. She doesn't. As I said, Polly is the one who's really keeping this family together, and Maddie Faye was not. That wasn't her role in the family. Her role was to be, she was the loudmouth. She was the one who, in a sense, tried to get away. She did try to get away from the family. She moved away to a different town and didn't want to be involved with her sister. Whereas Polly, ever the loyalist, Polly takes care of her sister, played by Dawn. She takes care of Silda. And she says that in the play because Silda is her sister no matter how many times Silda screws up, and Silda screws up royally throughout her life. But Polly is there to pick her up and give her a home and take care of her. And Maddie Faye is not really all about that. So yeah, there are some similarities, but they're very different characters, I think.
So Dave,
Yeah.
good. That's a really interesting question, Jane. It was a really interesting response, Angela. David, Sherry's asking in the chat box, how did we practice to do this virtually? Do you want me to?
Yes, I would like to, and then I have a couple of things to add to that too, because I think the virtual performance reveals a lot of different things too.
Absolutely.
So, go ahead, Hunter, please say.
Sure. So I'll just kick it off and the actors can add to what they would like. So this is different than a typical play reading where you would have a few rehearsals. A typical evening at 7 at LTM, for example, you would have some rehearsals and it would be a staged reading with more movement. This is different in two ways. First of all, as you heard the actors say, we had rehearsed for several weeks. We were supposed to open at the end of March. And so mid-March, we got a sudden, nope, not going to happen. And so everything halted. So we had done a lot of the initial character work. We had staged the whole show.
Memorized all the lines.
They were memorized all the lines is the big thing. And then, the set was being built, the costumes were brought in, and everything halted. And so we tried to get together a little bit to see, nobody knew at first COVID, was it going to be a week or, 2 weeks?
Right.
We knew it was going to go on. So, we hadn't really come back together to look at the script together for a couple of months. And so we were actually asked by LTM to do this rather suddenly. And so we didn't have a lot of rehearsal time. It helped that we had already had this good base. So we came together to answer your question, and we did mostly a couple of tests to kind of check out what we looked like. And, we didn't talk so much about the characters or the script then, because like I said, we just didn't have time, frankly. But we did spend quite a bit of time talking about the difference. And it's a very awkward thing the actors can speak to, of when you're looking at the eye of your camera, delivering something, when in real life you would be looking at the actors you were talking to. And, David mentioned the Zooms. That was something I decided on certain monologues. I would give the actors a choice if they wanted to be have that close up. So by the time we got towards the end and some of their more critical monologues, I worked with the actors and let them help identify, okay, these are spots I would be okay. Because it is kind of jarring when you see your face big. So we wanted to make sure they were okay with that. And it was the reason I think they were so authentic close up, David, as you noted, is because they had already done the work and committed these monologues to memory. They had really understood everything and all the nuances. And I think that really came across. So kudos to the actors. This is not an easy transition for stage actors to go to this kind of like computer virtual recorded format. It's very different. We had to make a lot of fast decisions, including like, do we use props? Do we look at each other? Is it going to make sense? So I'm glad it was kind of LTM's first foray into this, and I'm glad to hear you guys enjoyed it. Thank you, Linda. Linda saying she loved the virtual performance and thought it went well. So
the one thing that I found, because I've never trained acting for the camera, we're of the grandmas in the back rural school of acting. And so after we had the chance to watch our rehearsal, which was just tremendously helpful. And I ended up minimizing the pictures of my fellow actors to the point where I almost couldn't see them. So I wasn't tempted to look at them, and that the camera was my reaction. I had them in the earphone so I could react to the voices of everybody doing fabulous jobs, and then just tried to work with the camera. So that was something different for me. I don't know what the other actors experienced with that.
I agree with you, Mark. I didn't minimize it completely because I wanted to make sure that I was still in the frame. I mean, it was so, there were so many new things that you had to get used to doing this and looking at a camera and trying to convey your character, just looking at a camera. It was jarring. I have to say, I want to look a character in the eye. I want to touch them if it's appropriate. I want to, to me, that one-on-one or in a group being with them, you feel that electricity or you feel that the other character's anger or happiness or whatever. That's not there in this format. It's better than nothing. And I'm glad that people thought it went well. And it did go well for the most part. I just miss that personal connection.
Where were you? Where were you physically, each of you, when this was?
I was in my son's bedroom, and now I'm in the basement.
Okay.
Can I say something?
I would have done it differently. I mean, I didn't know what kind of setup to have. I know I was probably too close to the screen and all that.
No, I thought that was better. I was jealous of you there, actually, Angela.
Yeah. The
Can I say something?
The close-ups, yeah, Dawn. Were you going to say? Yeah.
Yeah, just one thing, like watching it myself, when I watched it, what Angela was saying about the difference than when you're acting on the stage. I mean, the first time I watched it, it was almost like I saw it for the first time, because on stage, I might be looking at Marissa if I'm talking to her, but I'm not seeing Angela rolling her eyes, or, you know what I mean? Or somebody else's, what they're going through when they're hearing what I'm saying or what, the other person is saying. You're looking at that person. And when I was watching it on the screen and watching the people's faces and their expressions, it was very moving to me because, like I said, you don't see everybody's expression that's on the stage, and that it added a lot for me.
Yeah.
And there's that scene between Silda and Polly when Silda's saying, "Oh, you should understand your daughter better."
The stare down.
Yeah, and Polly goes off on her. At the end of that, you and I have this moment. We are looking at each other, and and Polly is so angry at Silda, and Silda is not standing her ground because she believes what she's saying. And that, to me, was one of many powerful moments.
Yeah.
So Marissa, or when Brooke says to Polly, "I can't stand you." Oh my, can you imagine your own child saying that to you? That really gets you in the gut if that person is saying it to you.
Oh yeah.
But that came across.
So Marissa, it came across great when Brooke is saying it, but as Polly feeling it, it's a little diluted.
Oh, for sure, different.
Yeah, you're right, Angela. There's a lot of, like you say, theater is so physical and emotional, and it's feeling that energy between people when you're with them, and that's completely different when you're doing it through the camera.
On the other hand, the fact that we had these close-ups was
the close-ups are wonderful.
That was
Angela,
wonderful.
That was a great idea to do.
It was wonderful.
But like you said, Angela, we do lose a lot of those like really beautiful stage pictures that Hunter and I had put together when we were blocking the show. So it's frustrating to not be able to see everything staged beautifully, and there's a lot of the like actions that we tried to include with the stage directions that come up on screen.
And that was a good idea. That was a good idea. Give people some more
there is stuff that is lost, and that's unfortunate with this format.
But still, it is a great way to present this show.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. I can't. It would have been a shame. It would have been a shame had we not been able to salvage this play in the way that we did. And we have, this hour has gone by very quickly. It's actually a little bit after 1 o'clock. I don't know, Dwayne, are we on a time constraint here? Should we finish?
No, I mean, you guys are, the time is yours. And, as long as people are still watching, feel free.
Were there any other comments or questions that came from the viewers?
Let's see any other ones.
One
listed.
one thing, if I may say, last night in watching it, it was strange because it was almost as if I was watching and performing mentally at the same time, if that makes sense. And the one thing that this play has, which many modern plays do not, is that it develops catharsis in really the strict sort of classical sense of the word. I mean, I was moved, as I always am, by Lyman's words at the end, and I was moved again last night. And every character has a catharsis, and I, as an audience member, maybe I'm a little, jaded or not. That's the wrong word, but I definitely had a catharsis. I felt that catharsis last night, and I think that all the characters have that catharsis on a certain level. Every one at different points. I would say the parents at the same point, and I think the audience walks out with that sense, that emotional release that just gets built up so well. And again, the beauty of the play.
And what was good about the way that we ended up doing this play, virtually, was that at the very end, when we are privy to the reactions of the characters as certain things are disclosed, it was so powerful to see the expressions on the actors' faces, which I think in person you would have had to go from character, but we could see you all reacting at the same time, fairly close up. I mean, not necessarily the entire screen, but it was striking. It was very, very moving. It was cathartic for us as well as for the characters who were experiencing it. It was really unique, I thought. I was very moved by it. Every bit as much as when I saw the reading last couple of years ago in person.
And I want to just echo that, David, to the actors, because I know there's a lot of fragile, it's hard to kind of understand it from the audience perspective when the feeling is so different as an actor, right? But I just want the actors to know that people tuning in generally got something from all of your performances. And even myself and Billy, who were very familiar with the play, I can't speak for Billy, but for myself, it's like, you made me hear things or notice things differently just from the way you did it, and we recorded it and Absolutely. I heard it. And that's really phenomenal. So I just want you to hear that and feel good about that. I know it didn't feel the same, you're welcome, but it was really moving. And I hope those of you listening, I know Ron says he's going to be watching tomorrow afternoon, are able to just see it with an open mind. And, really kudos to the team. Good job.
I think we have two questions.
One is about, one, Dwayne, did you want to answer?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I'll just say that if anyone wants to tune in and watch, if we happen to be doing a broadcast of it, send me an email at info@cheneyhall.org, and I will get you all the information you need. And just a reminder, to learn about these going forward, the best thing to do is to sign up for our email list. Again, just because it's difficult for us to advertise for some of these, given some of the restrictions. But if you're on our email list and you are a fan of LTM, we want to make sure you get that information.
Sherry Shalek. Hi, Sherry. Also has a question. Did we get distracted during this format? I was so paranoid that I was focusing as hard as I could because I was so worried about it, to be honest with you. Except for when the cat jumped on the couch behind me.
That was my favorite part.
Yeah.
I was a little distracted, but but since it was my first time, I think that doing it, I think that accounts for it. I think if I did this, I'm not trained as a film actor either. So I'm just not used to this format. And I think I would be less distracted if I did it more. That's all.
Well,
I did find a little distracting. I kept looking, am I in the frame? And
Yeah. I just saw Steven's face pop up there. What, Stevens, say something.
I was just gonna say, as Tripp, he has this couple of scenes where he's part of it, but he doesn't have anything vocally to say until very specific moments. And it's in those moments where I, as an actor in that situation, my own home, with things happening, because I wasn't blocking off everything. I could have definitely been distracted, and I could have easily been just staring off. But, not just because I knew I was on camera and that people were going to see those reactions, but the characters and the actors who I was in the scenes with, they made those moments easy to stay present. I had no issue at all trying to convince myself, oh, I need to listen to what they're saying, or I need to react to this person's emotional, expression. And I think under normal circumstances, if we didn't have the time we had together and we just did these 2 rehearsals straight off the screen and went right to it, I think, it would have been really easy to get distracted. But we were already very strong as far as finding our way in the process. And they made it super easy to stay present.
And certainly as a viewer, I can tell you that it was a very, very, it was an experience in the theater. Maybe a little different, but it was,
Thank you,
to me,
Dave.
it was absolutely in a different way, just as good as seeing it. And I think possibly because I was so pleased that we were able to see it, because it was, as I said at the beginning, it was kind of touch and go, because it had been canceled, and we didn't know if we'd have permission to do it, but we did. I think probably we should wrap up now. Dwayne, is there anything that you would like to add about? I know you're encouraging people to stay tuned for further kinds of events like this. I guess they can find out that information by looking at our website or on Facebook.
Anything that we can sort of share for the general public will definitely be on our website. But again, make sure and sign up for our email list. Just go to our cheneyhall.org and scroll down to the bottom. You'll see a place where you can sign up. It's weird, I know, but there's some of that stuff we can't put on Facebook. We can't announce publicly, and we are doing some readings of some some interesting and exciting things coming up. I think our next one will be a new play from a Connecticut playwright, actually Manchester area playwright. So definitely stay tuned for that. And our goal is to sort of produce something almost every week, as long as we can keep that going, because who knows when we'll be back in a live theater format, but hopefully not too long.
Yeah. Thank you, Dwayne. Any other final words before we say goodbye until next time?
Mhm.
As I'm doing this, I realize, listening to you guys, I constantly look at myself when I'm on Zoom and just wondering what I look like in my reactions. Was anyone else tempted to do that while you were in character?
That's why I minimized it personally.
Yeah, me too.
The only thing I would say I was mindful of that wouldn't have been on stage was I wanted to have a nuanced reaction to the characters where I wasn't staring solely at the camera, but I also wasn't staring at their faces on the screen. So I tried to beforehand just know, because we did a couple runs, know where they were in the order on the screen. Like, is Angela to my upper left? Is Marissa to my right? And I tried to just play off of that, not, so that way if Angela says something I wasn't happy with, I'm not going to be like, staring at her with contentment. I would like, and so I think, again, not really reading into, it's a different format. You can't get caught up in what the person is doing. You have to listen. In a way, it almost allows you to appreciate the words that much more, because you're listening more than if you were on stage, because you don't have those visual cues to get caught up in.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to thank everyone for
Bye, Marissa.
including
Bye.
tuned in. And please, as we said, check our website and you'll find out about more things that we're planning this way, because we do want to keep a profile a high profile during this time when we have not been able to have our regular season. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you to the people who were involved in this play for participating today. I'm so glad that we were able to do this lunchtime lecture.
Thanks,
Thank
David.
you all.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You-
Bye.